Edgewater. Now, you guys may be familiar with names that are in kind of the area of Edgewater, places like Sloan Lake or West Highland. But basically, Edgewater is just going to be located a little bit to the west or a little bit to the left of that if you're looking at it on a Google map. Now, Edgewater is an area that doesn't get a ton of publicity just because it is a bit smaller in size and scale. However, man, it has a lot going for it, and that's why I chose it as one of the two places that I would definitely pick myself if I was starting over from scratch today here in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. So, looking at it on a map, one of the things I love about this area, again, is the lifestyle. You're looking at it at not just a place that you're going to call home, but also all the stuff that surrounds it that can be really taken advantage of on a daily, if not weekly basis. Walking around Sloan Lake Park used to be one of my favorite things to do when I lived over in the Sloan Lake area in an area called East Bay. That was only about a 5-minute, maybe 10-minute walk from where I lived to get over here to the Edgewater area. But why I wanted to put this one as the first area for you guys also to consider is because it's a little bit earlier in the process of being popular. 20 years ago when I was growing up in Wheat Ridge, which is a little bit actually to the west of Edgewater, but really close in the same area, we used to see the area of Sloan Lake and West Highlands as a kind of just a normal place, kind of older, outdated homes, a lot of 1900s bungalows. And man, over the last 20 years, that area has completely transformed, and Edgewater has those same indications that it's doing the same thing. It's just a little bit behind in the process. So I love that about Edgewater because it is a little bit of a tried and true, proven formula when it comes to getting in a little bit earlier and having that work in your favor in the long run. Being able to buy a property and sit on it and enjoy the appreciation as this area around Edgewater continues to get better and improved and only become more and more popular. So again, we're going to talk through 3 aspects to each of these 2 neighborhoods, and the first one being why it's a strategic place to consider buying. So one of the things I love about Edgewater right now is a lot of the housing inventory, the homes that are for sale, they're a little bit on the older side. You'll find more homes in this area that still haven't been renovated. A lot of big savvy investors and real estate developers, they'll already have, for the most part, in the surrounding area of Sloan Lake and Highlands, they've already identified most of the fixer-uppers and already kind of gone through that process. Edgewater, there's still a few more to be found, and I think if you are somebody that's looking for some of that value-added potential, could be a really strong bet. Now, that fixer-upper inventory that, like I said, doesn't really exist as much anymore in Sloan Lake and Highlands, there is some of that in Edgewater, but since it is a smaller area, and also because it is getting popular, you're still going to have some challenges, but they're out there if you just stay persistent. So now that we've talked about that lifestyle benefit of Edgewater, when it comes to pricing and that long-term value play with Edgewater, what I love about it is the median sales price of homes right now, it's a bit lower than some of those surrounding areas. So you have the opportunity to find homes in the $650,000 to $900,000 mark, as opposed to places like Sloan Lake that might even be above $1 million. So you have opportunities, or at least options, that sometimes are getting quite hard to find in those other areas. So a little bit more availability when it comes to that, and a few more that might have that fixer-upper material if that's what you're looking for. Okay, and then before we move on to the second area that I want to share with you guys, we've already talked a little bit about the value or just the positioning within the area of Sloan Lake and Edgewater, as well as that long-term value that we're going to really see appreciate over time because of the surrounding area. Last but not least, we're talking a little bit more now just about the lifestyle. What I love about Edgewater, it's only about a 10 to 15 minute drive to downtown Denver if you are commuting for work, but also you're just about the same distance if you want to go west to some of my favorite areas like Applewood, Golden, and even parts of western Wheat Ridge, which is where I said earlier that I grew up, and I think that's also an awesome area. So lots of going on when it comes to lifestyle, as well as just the more kind of healthy, active lifestyle that Colorado oftentimes has that reputation for, that you may or may not be maybe getting a little frustrated with actually finding when you're starting to get out and search for areas around Denver. What I love about Edgewater is it does really embrace that because it's so close to Sloan Lake. I also love the views. When you're talking about lifestyle, it's not just about what's around you, but also sometimes just the feeling you get when you're in those areas. And what's so cool about Edgewater is you have 2 different views that are equally as awesome. Oftentimes when you're looking out west from Edgewater, you can actually see the Sloan Lake Park in the area of Sloan Lake, as well as the Denver city skyline behind that. Really unique and cool view. But you also have great views if you're looking out west when you're in Edgewater to see the mountains and just all of the great snow-capped peaks as you kind of progress yourself into the Rocky Mountains. So really, really good views, which just add that extra layer to being a great lifestyle.